Welcome, travelers. Welcome back to the Traveling Podcast. Welcome, Travelers Podcast is a podcast about traveling. I'll just share my experiences of the places I've been to. Hopefully, we'll get some guests on to share their experiences and hear their stories of interesting adventures and other stuff too. If you're watching this on Spotify, you can come here, listen to it on. I'm gonna try to put this on Tuesdays now. Let's see how that works. And then I'm gonna have the YouTube version of this on Wednesday. No, not Wednesday. Thursday. And on the YouTube side of things, you can see the pictures and videos that will have it, and you'll have a special kind of highlight video in the end of it as well. And we'll have guests on. We'll have talk about their experiences. Like I said, I'm a photographer, videographer, and hopefully we get some other videographers, some other photographers out there, and other people that kind of involves with traveling, get their experiences, show their work as well. But we took a week off, a break. We was traveling. We went to Vancouver, Canada, which is only about 30 minutes away from where we live. We live on the border, a border town. And we had a chance to spend the night there for 3 nights. So it's kind of nice to be kind of back into the city again. Right now we live kind of in a suburbia neighborhood, which is nice. Kind of out in the country a little bit. We used to live kind of downtown Kansas City, Missouri, and kind of miss that kind of city feel. You know, walk down the street to a nice restaurant or a nice outing and walk back. It's kind of a nice, fun, familiar feel again in Vancouver. Also, we went there to celebrate our anniversary. My lady and I, my partner, my girlfriend, we spent 8 years together, so it was fun to do that for but a few days. And it's just kind of fun to explore the town a little bit. We've been to Vancouver a couple times, a day or so, and been there for day trips. So we did some things that we kind of experienced, really. I think this podcast will have a 3-part series of Vancouver from our experiences. I'm going to try to have the podcast kind of shrink down to more of a maybe 40 minutes time length. And I'll probably do a 3-part series back to back to back. But if you guys want to kind of sprinkle in other things besides that, let me know, because I'm not for sure a 3-part series in 3 weeks in a row would be too much, or if you kind of want to sprinkle it in throughout the summer. Let me know. I'm very flexible. But right now, I think part 1 is going to release this week, or I guess when it airs next time, which would be next Tuesday, this Tuesday. I guess whatever you're listening to it on. And the next part 2 will probably release afterwards. So let me know if you guys like this or not, and I can change things up because I have some other stuff planned out as well. And yeah, our trip to Vancouver, nice. I would say it's somewhat inexpensive trip as well, which was good. So and that kind of leads into our tip of the day. And I guess my tip of the day is weather preparation when you visit the Pacific Northwest. Now, the part of the Pacific Northwest that we live in, we kind of live in a rainy, we're kind of like in the Bay Area of 2 temperate rainforests. So we get like a lot of storms, a lot of the residuals, I think I like to say, of the weather there. So we get a lot of rain, precipitation, very humidity, but it's not that hot Midwest humidity. It's just the air is just very watery. So you wake up, if you have your car outdoors, there's a lot of condensation built up inside it. The grass is very moist, very wet, humid. And it kind of sprinkles in, rains. It kind of rains like throughout the day. Sometimes might rain for like an hour or 20 minutes. It's very sporadically. It's very rare for it to rain constant throughout the day, kind of like maybe like storm season in the Midwest. Because if it does, here mudslides will happen, and that's not fun. Especially if it covers one of the main interstates. And here in Washington, like some roads are kind of very dependent on travelers because there's only a few roads to get to a place because of the mountains and passes and stuff like that. So when you come visit us, I always recommend always bring a raincoat no matter where you go, because because it might be a clear day and in an hour or so it might be rainy or cloudy or very very wet. And like even day by day, it's kind of changes. So it could, and your 7 day a week plan of a weather could be say like, oh, it's gonna be nice and sunny all week, but the next day it could change to be like, oh, it's gonna be cloudy, oh, it's gonna rain the next day, and so on and so on. So it's not that very dramatic, I guess, mood swing changes like the Midwest weather, which we grew up where it could be very hot, very cold one day. It just kind of, it will get dry, it might get wet, you might not have sun. And rare chance you might do get sun, and that's a chance. That's a good day to have. I think Washington, we only have 1 month of summer, which is dry and hot, or hot-ish, if you consider 80 degrees hot. But and I think other parts of the Pacific Northwest is kind of drier, warmer too. So I always recommend tell people to bring layers as well, like have stuff that you can easily take off and be cooler or warmer depending on the season you come in. I think Oregon is kind of more drier. I think Eastern Washington is a little more dry. But yeah, rain jacket for sure, rain gear. I always tell people the more expensive, the fun rain gear to get is probably the more pricier ones. Is like where they have the zipper on the armpit to give you good ventilation for yourself. And we got some good deals. I found some good deals on a jacket that I really like. But it's good for me for hiking too because it ventilates me so you don't have that build up sweat and being hot on a rain day or on a day that it rains. But yeah, that's kind of my tip of the day for that. But yeah, let me know your thoughts. If any local people have some tips for weather preparation. Oh, shoes is a big deal. Like wear shoes that you might get mud or dirt on for sure. Like there's sometimes hiking trails where we might close or shoes are just has a layer of dust or dirt on it. So dress appropriately. Yeah, and depending on where you're at too, sometimes the mountains, if you have issues with high altitude, bring some medicine. Water is always a must. I always bring a backpack with me. I just try to bring a first aid kit just in case something happens. Sometimes these trails are about like 2 to 3 miles average, so about like 5 kilometers. So you kind of want to get some water. I always bring a couple of bottles of water just for me, and it's for emergency in case something happens. You come across someone who needs it, or they're stranded, or they can desperately need it. Some people are not prepared correctly. Also bring some granola bars, something that gives you good energy if you're hiking more than a few miles or kilometers. And a first aid kit. We start bringing first aid kits a lot just because, like, again, like there's a good park called Artist Point. We go once a year, and it's about like, I don't know, like 45 minutes to an hour for the closest town. So if something happens, like if you have a cut, bruise, or hopefully nothing dramatic happens, that you have a kind of first aid kit to help mend the issue. So yeah, always bring a backpack, or at least something to store your stuff in, water bottles, food, and if you have a camera like me, have something to carry with. So, and light, like it's always good to have light stuff too, light clothing. Heavy clothing sucks up more energy from you, more calories, and it will put more strain on you if you're hiking long distance. And shoes is a good must too. Like have shoes that has a good grip on it, nothing that's pretty worn, because like even like rocks and dirt and stuff like that, eventually like it'll be slick or get to a spot that might be slick. And you can't really predict the weather, what may not be too. And like for pictures for weather too, like you can't really predict what. Sometimes you get some good moody pictures with the clouds covering like the mountains or hills or even by the beach. But photography wise, like you kind of had to go with the flow, what may not happen. I know like overcast days for like photography for portraits is like a great thing, but for like landscape nature stuff, it kind of makes it a little boring, kind of makes the gray out the sky. So you'd rather have like a nice blue sky or some clouds in there, or a nice sunset too. Is always good to have. But that is the tip of the day. And this kind of leads into our next segment, the segment. Stuff that you kind of like, we kind of go over different laws, cultures, traditions that people are probably not as familiar as, I guess I'm not as familiar too. Some people might know this a lot, and I might be the only one that's like, oh, that's weird that he doesn't know about this. But it's kind of our segment, like, that's interesting, I never thought of that. So we do different cultures, foods, laws, weird laws. Last time we did this was you keep your doors open, unlocked case of polar bears. So this one, we're going all the way to Finland, and they have a tradition called the wife carrying competition. Now, the wife carrying competition is a sporting event that originated in Finland and involves male competitors carrying a female teammate during an obstacle course. The objective of the competition is for the male to carry the female over a specific distance, often 253.5 meters. While navigating a series of obstacles such as water pools and sand pits, the competition is believed to have originated from the Finnish legend called Ronkinen the robber, who trained his thieves by carrying heavy sacks on their backs. Eventually started carrying people. The modern competition is held annually in Sonkajärvi, Finland, and has since spread to other countries around the world. The rules of the competition vary slightly depending on the event, but generally the female teammate must be at least 17 years old, and the male must be strong enough to carry her through the course. The female can be carried by any manner such as piggyback, fireman's carry, or Estonian style where the female hangs upside down with their legs around the male's shoulder. The male can receive penalty points if he drops his teammate and fails to complete the obstacle, or the female falls off. The wife carrying competition has gained popularity in recent years and now is held in many countries around the world, including the United States, Canada, Australia. While the competition is primarily a fun, light-hearted event, it also requires a significant amount of strength, endurance, and teamwork. So I thought that was very interesting. Like, would you guys trust your husband to carry you for about 253 meters, so 2.5 lengths of the football field. So like down, back, and then back to the 50-yard line, and that's the competition. And the obstacle course, you had to go through water. I've seen some pictures where the water is kind of like, looks like maybe up to their knees or shins, depending on how tall the person is. So there's some decent resistance. And the sand pits would be interesting because if you ever ran or walk on the beach, it really works out the calves, the feet, muscles, stuff like that. So imagine have another person on top of you. I'm assuming at least like another 100 pounds, right? You have to carry. So that'd be very interesting. And I should have looked it up to see if there's actually is a LGBTQ friendly event too. Like, what requires a wife? Like, if it's two women carrying each other, would that be an advantage or not an advantage? Or like, what would be the advantage of it? Like, do you want a strong, lean person and a smaller person, or you want someone who's like flexible, or a bigger person as well? Because the bigger person carrying his wife would be, you get the strength part of it, so you shouldn't feel as heavy. But the endurance of walking across water, sand could be pretty challenging for them versus someone who's probably more lean and has more experience of running long distance, but they're smaller, with the weight of the person hinder them even more. I'm curious about that. And what do you dress? Do you dress something to really like have on so the person can grab on things? Like, is there a dress code where you can't wear like a vest or a utility belt or a utility, vest to have them hang on? And I wonder what carrying technique is the best. The fireman carry, which is like over the shoulder. The piggyback, where you just have them on and you just run, which I think that probably be my go-to. Just because like a backpack, at least I can have like, at least if I could carry the person and I can have momentum going forward. I think if it's like a straight line, like point A to point B to carry that person, I think piggyback would be my kind of go-to. Like I get that and I just run, and I kind of use that momentum of the weight behind me and kind of move forward. Now, if I stop or fall over, it's kind of, I guess I get the penalty points or game over. And I wonder if the penalty point is like you're eliminated or you just like, I don't know, I don't know how that works. I should have looked up more information about that. And I wonder like how the tradition from like robbing sacks and carried it around your back for thieves. I wonder how it went from like, I wish it gave me like I should have looked at the date where that happened, but like carrying sacks to carrying people and then carrying wives. I wonder how the transition from like, here's a bag of stuff, which I'm assuming might be food or treasure or whatnot, to like a wife. How did that transition came about? Like, hey, you know what? Let's carry our wives out. Are they stealing people's wives? Is that was that how it originated from? And do they have to go through like the beach to escape these wives? These are the questions I kind of want to know about this. And I wonder for like the carrying part of it, if there's some stuff they kind of banned, like it was too unfair or too weird. Like, no, you can't do that. And I wonder the difference between like the athletes, I guess athletes, if you consider that, from the traditional Finland to the, like, say like US, Canada, Australia, if they're better or worse. I'm curious about that. But that is our segments. I think we have some pretty fun ones to look up for the next few weeks. I'm excited to share that to you. But for our trip of the day, so our trip of the day is a part one of three series to Vancouver, British Columbia in Canada. So like I said, we stayed in Canada for 3 nights, 4 or 5 days, if that works, the math. But we got there, we crossed the border, which border crossing, I think I'll have that as a tip of the day sometime in the future, but it usually it's pretty good, pretty easy, and we'll kind of give you a ton of tips to navigate it through that. And we stayed there. I think our hotel, like we left pretty early, got some lunch. We ate a Mongolian not barbecue, but Mongolian grill, which we haven't ate since we moved out here, which was fantastic. I think it's $20 for a bowl, and $30 for all you can eat. And I think they charge extra for seafood, but they offer, if you ever been to a Mongolian grill, it's like you go to a buffet, everything's not cooked. So you got your meats, so you have pork, chicken, beef, and then you kind of have more of a, I guess, like stir-fried veggies there and noodles, different types of noodles. You put it in a bowl, and you have to use sauces, so you can have teriyaki, garlic, some Mongolian spicy sauce. So there's a lot of stuff you can combine to make your own flavors and stuff like that, which I like. And they have a kind of a giant, I guess, griddle or fryer where they just cook everything. And sometimes they add an egg to it, and it turns out really good. And I wish I had wrote down the place we went to because I really enjoyed it. I think it's Mongolian Wall or something like that. And it's right before you get to, not really right before you get Granville Island, but I think it's Mongolian Wall, Great Wall or something like that. And it was really good. They offered a soup, I had miso soup, and they had like they had a bowl of rice, and they had a little fun, like a little dessert at the end, which was really good. It's like a puff cream dessert, which is like kind of like a small like donut hole. And it was like, I think it was whipped cream in the middle of it. It was really tasty. And my girlfriend is lactose intolerant, so she couldn't eat it. So I ate hers, which was fun. So we went there, and then our first part of the venture, we went to, before we checked into our hotel, because it wouldn't be ready till like around 3 anyways. So we went to the Stanley Park, and the first attraction we kind of went to was the aquarium. And I think this is I can't remember if this is my first aquarium. I've been to a few zoos before, and some zoos has aquarium inside of it. But for it to be like this is our aquarium, this is our thing. I think this is the first time I've been there. But the Vancouver Aquarium is a public aquarium located in Stanley Park, Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. It is one of the largest and most diverse aquariums in North America, featuring over 50,000 animals from more than 700 species. And I would say that's probably accurate. There's a lot of stuff. The aquarium opened in 1956 as a small marine museum. It has since grown, become a major attraction in Vancouver, drawing over 1 million visitors each year. The aquarium is committed to conservation and education with a focus on protecting marine life and ecosystem. Some of the highlights of the aquarium includes marine mammals. The aquarium is home to several marine mammals exhibits, including harbor seals, sea lions, and otters, which I did see. Visitors can watch the animals swim, play, and interact with trainers. The underwater ocean, this exhibit allows visitors to walk through a glass tunnel while surrounded by a variety of marine life, including sharks, sea turtles, and tropical fish, which I don't know if we did that or not. And the penguin point, which is funny because they're about to transport the penguins. The Vancouver Aquarium is home to a colony of African penguins, which can be viewed above and below the water, which I think they're being transferred to, I don't know, I forgot, but I saw an article about that. So you might not see penguins if you go there, or you might. I don't know if they're getting new ones, or I don't know what's happening with that. In addition, these exhibits in the Vancouver Aquarium also offers a variety of educational programs, activities for visitors of all ages, including behind-the-scenes tours, marine mammal training and sessions, marine mammal training sessions, and interactive exhibits. So I guess you first walked in, you go to Stanley Park. Parking does cost you to stay there. I think it's only a couple of dollars per hour for it, so it's not a lot. Especially if you need to extend it out, you can do it. You can go through an app through your phone. You can extend it out for you, and it's pretty cheap. So it's only a couple of dollars to extend it. You get there, and it's very they divide everything out pretty nicely. There's different tunnels and hallways and stuff that you can go through. And there's some interesting art with it too. That's the first thing that popped out. Or first thing that popped in was the giant otter mascot, which kind of creeped me out a little bit. It looks like a very looks like about to be Five Nights at Freddy's video game with the animatronics. But it looks like something like that before it was the decaying part of it. And there's some fun, interesting jellyfish artwork on the ceiling. That's what really stood out for me. Oh, this is interesting for it. But they do offer a bunch of tours, educational programs, kids. We went there on a Tuesday afternoon, and it was kind of crowded. I would say it's there's parts of it where you do have other people to walk around with, but it wasn't you're still able to get to see one thing to another pretty quickly at your own pace. So you're not hampered on the traffic of people there. The kids, there's a lot of workers there around the area, which is nice if you ask questions. But my standouts too, I'm trying to go through my pictures here. My standout one so far would be the jellyfish. I don't know what's the deal with jellyfish for taking photographs or videos of it, but it's just, I don't know, it's very cinematic, the lighting is really nice. There's a nice contrast of the blue background, and they're kind of their orange and yellow and red skin color. It really makes it very cinematic, very nice for taking pictures. And I didn't really take good pictures on this trip. I'm going to say that. I was kind of a little disappointed on some of the things, but the jellyfish stuff is fantastic. They kind of break it out to tropical fish, Pacific Northwest. They do a big emphasis of the Pacific Northwest stuff. So they have nice exhibits and different things to see. There's different like little aquariums and tanks. So you can see a variety of like of what's the coral reefs they have. A variety of starfishes. Sometimes if you're lucky, you might get a starfish stuck on the glass, and it's pretty great. I like it. Another good jellyfish one too was like there's like these purple, it's like almost like black light neon jellyfish. I guess because like if you go to the ocean and see most jellyfish, they're pretty invisible, and it's terrifying when you touch one with your bare hand because at first it feels like you're touching nothing, so it kind of freaks you out a little bit, but you really can see it good. I think the black light they have and the lights they have in the exhibit really brings them out, and you see them more detailed. Another great thing we have to see was it was kind of cool to see the electric eel, and it's kind of funny because my partner, she went to the tank. This is one of the tanks that's in the middle of the room too, and there's a giant tree, or is it, I don't know if it's a real or fake tree in the middle of it, and she's looking for it, and she's like trying to look for this little tiny electric eel, and she didn't realize how big they are. They're pretty like a good size, a branch size eel, or a good branch on a tree, and she was surprised how big it was, and I think it scared her a little bit too. But you saw a bunch of stuff. Yeah, it's really nice. And I think it's surprising too. Oh, and then there's the clownfish. I think the clownfish one is pretty photogenic too. And with the amoebas? No, amoebas. What's the things the coral reefs they have? The anemone? I don't know. The clownfishes are great. But variety of fish, good stuff. Well, the coolest thing too they have is it's really hard to see, but it's kind of almost a little intimidating. They have a giant octopus, I think, and I should have looked at the sign to see if it's a legit giant octopus, but it's pretty big. But it's put itself in this little small cave, but you can see like the giant suction cups and the shape of it, and it was kind of intimidating. I'm a certified scuba diver, but if I saw it come across that, I'd be like, might be a little brown in the water, if you know what I'm saying. A little pee. But yeah, it was the way it can suck itself into such a small space and almost camouflage to its background was amazing and intimidating for how small it was too. And I think another surprising things it offers non-fish underwater creatures too. There's a bird exhibit. See some birds. Saw some monkeys there. A lot of reptiles, a lot of amphibians. We saw some lots of frogs, lizards, snakes. We saw a anaconda, which I've seen only one other anaconda at a zoo in St. Louis, Missouri, and I would recommend go there to check it out because at the time we went there, the zoo was free for the public, and they have a reptilian exhibit, and they have a green anaconda, and this thing was thick, muscly. Bigger than your bicep, thick snake, and it was very intimidating. And we saw one here in Vancouver, and this one was a little further away, but in the water. But it was still like, you could see, I don't know if I got a picture of it or not, but you could see from the scale of the surroundings of how big it was and how long it was. It just, because its neck stretched out out of the water, but you can see it just stretched all the way down. And it was about like, the water was maybe 5-6 feet deep, and you can't see the other end of the snake. It just stretched out to the bottom where you can't see it. So, and I know they are not to be messed with. The anacondas. But then we saw some like fish. We saw, I think another amazing thing was the frogs, the tree frogs, or the poison. There's colorful poison frogs, the blue and the yellow ones, and like, if they get on you or you get poisoned by them, it's pretty. I don't know if it's game over, but you're gonna have a tough time. I didn't realize how small they were. They were about the size of, like, you can probably fit them on my pinky finger. They were very, very tiny and very small, and it took a minute for you to find it. It was like I think they're about the same size of a Lego figurine, and the fact that they're poison, and the yellow and orange ones are easier to find because they really stand out. But there's these blue ones, and if it's dark or it's like nighttime, especially if there's kind of like a blue, because nighttime sometimes you get kind of like a blue haze from the moonlight or blue light, they can really blend in easily. And yeah, and if some of them jump on you, like they're very fast, very jumpy, very energetic too. So like if one of those jump on you, and it's kind of a bad time. But you see a bunch of frogs, and then we eventually got to you see the seals, the sea lions. I think the sea lion, there was a sea pup, and I think they put I don't know if I know they put the mom and the pup together. I'm not for sure if they took the whole family in with them, if that's a thing. But you could see the sea pup was nursing, and the mom was pretty close to we can see from the visuals of it from where we're at. And most of the sea mammals were outside, so it was a nice indoor pool area that you can see underneath the water. But then eventually you can go outside to see the outer part of it. You can see the sea lions swimming, and then you see the harbor seals. And then the sea lions are the ones who, it was a sea pup, I think. I need to take more notes of this. But it was fun to see that, a lot of interaction, and you see these sea otters. Sea otters were very energetic. Swimming around, you could see point of views of them being out of the water and under the water. Very, very bigger than I expected it to be. I saw one sea otter close to where we live called Birch Bay. And it's from a distance, so it was like to me, it felt smaller, or maybe I just associate sea otters being smaller, but it's as long as a dog, almost like it's bigger than a corgi. We used to have an Australian Shepherd, so I'd say it's probably as long as the Australian Shepherd. And they're pretty decent sized claws, and they're carnivores, so they eat meat too. So like these things can probably, I know they can get pretty aggressive at times too, but if it crawls in your boat, and I don't know, it's pretty intimidating. And then like, I guess one of the sea otters got pretty frisky with one another, and the kids kind of freaked out, and the mom kind of freaked out, and then some old lady was trying to justify, like, oh, this is nature, don't worry about that. Like, oh, there's his genital. I'm like, and then my girlfriend, Nadia, she was saying like, hey, you should check out Iceland. There's a penis museum you can go to. I'm like, oh God, no, I just don't talk to this lady, okay? It's just a bizarre thing. I don't want any more attention than I need to be. I wonder if any photographers out there have this issue where you're taking pictures and doing stuff, but then like, by God, if there's like a group of people, family next to you, they'll look at you first, take their picture every single time. And times, I don't know. Sometimes it's a pain in the butt. So here's the big thing about traveling and taking pictures is like, if there's a group family and you're next to them, you're going to eventually ask you to take their picture with your phone. And then they try to tell you how to take your picture, even though you have a camera on your strap and you've been taking pictures all day. And they'll ask you that, and at times you just want them, you just do it so they can move on. So if there's a line of people waiting for a spot, you just, all right, take a picture, gone. And, or if you're other photographers, I wonder if you come across this part is, have you ever been to a spot like people are taking pictures everywhere else, and you find a spot that looks nice, like, oh, this is a great spot to take a picture of. You take it, and there's like a flood of people just get in your space and around you and start taking the same spot. And that kind of annoys me. I mean, I guess it's kind of flattering that it's like you picked a good spot, but annoying that people do not respect other people's personal space. But yeah, the sea otters aquarium was nice. I would recommend. It is a nice educational spot to go to check out animals in a safe environment and learn stuff. There is like a pros and cons for aquariums and zoos, stuff like that, for animal captivities. Like I think you have to be, there's a difference of like education and protecting animals versus like you making a profit of it too. So like there's a fine balance of it. I know there's like pros and cons of it, and there's a pros and cons of like why you shouldn't have it as well. But again, if you're a photographer, a videographer, if you want a good practice of taking animal pictures, zoos, aquariums are a nice place to do it. There's a lot of challenges. There's some places here, the lighting, because a lot of times you're, especially in the aquarium side of it, you're taking some dark pictures indoors, and you might think it's a good picture, but you come back home and realize some of these are not that great because you're not in focus. So it's good practice. And then after that, we went to Stanley Park, which we were in Stanley Park. Stanley Park is a huge, huge park. So Stanley Park is about 1,000-acre public park located in the city of Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, which is where we're in. It says it's the city's most populated tourist attraction, which that could be true. It's a pretty large park, and it draws over 8 million visitors each year. The park is surrounded by water on 3 sides and with views of the city skyline and the North Shore Mountains. It has a wide range of culture and nature attractions, including the seawall, which is an 8-kilometer pedestrian bike path winds its way around the perimeter of the park, offering stunning views of the water, mountains, city skyline. Beaches. The park is home to several beaches, including English Bay Beach, Second Beach, and Third Beach. And the beach is a kind of more, so seawall is kind of like on the east side of it to see a nice view of the city. And I guess the other cities of surrounding Vancouver too. I'm not for sure what the city limit is. But you get a nice view of the mountains. You can take a bike, rent a bike there, and just bike around there. I think it's $7 an hour, Canadian dollars an hour, to bike around there. So it's a great biking path. It's pretty flat, so it doesn't take much work to do it. And you actually have special bike paths to bike around too. So I think next time we go there, we bike it. Driving to Stanley Park the traffic in Vancouver is the same as in the U.S. Mostly the same laws and stuff like that. Some things are kind of like a little hectic. But and there's not really much of a public transportation. Maybe the bus to get there, but besides that, you either have to drive, bike there, and there's some sea bus, ocean bus, boat bus. What was it called? But there's some boats you can get there from Granville Island to get there, and there's some nice trails that leads to the park. But visitors can swim, sunbathe, and enjoy a variety of water sports in the beach areas, and there's some totem poles. The park is home to one of the largest collections of totem poles in the world, with over 10 poles located in the park's Brookton Point area, which that's where you visited, and we'll talk about that later. The park is home to several gardens, including the Rose Garden, the Shakespeare Garden, and the Stanley Park Train Garden. The park is home to a variety of wildlife, including raccoons, skunks, squirrels, and over 200 species of birds in addition to those attractions. The park also features several restaurants, cafes, and gift shops, as well as a variety of outdoor recreation activities such as hiking, cycling, tennis. Stanley Park is a beloved spot for locals and visitors alike, offering a peaceful retreat from the bustle of the city and a chance to reconnect with nature. I would say the park, it is pretty easy to get to. It's pretty close to Vancouver downtown, but there is a bit of a distance to it that you feel kind of disconnect from the city. So it is a nice local area that you can go to travel variety of trails you go through. You explore a lot about it, and it's not difficult. It looks big, but it's not difficult to walk around. There's not really much good sized hills. I think we saw one half the park, and it's been maybe an hour and a half to visit around, and we just got tired walking around at the aquarium all day, and we were traveling too that day. But the totem poles was a nice plus. There's an area that had about, I'd say like 9 to 10 totem poles and other displays. It's really interesting. They're really protective about it, so you can only get to a certain point before you can't cross over. And I think it had like a little creek or barrel, or a creek or nature, I think it's nature blockage. You can't get any closer. But it's really well maintained, adds some culture to the area, especially to the indigenous people that were there before. And nice variety of stuff. I think one of the more interesting things about traveling is like you take pictures, you get to see it, but there's always like a curiosity part of it, like the different totem poles, what they mean, what's the different styles mean. And there's some of them that have like, there's like different layers of animals, like your typical totem pole, but there's others that kind of like blends in together. Like there's like it kind of groups into like an overall story arc of it. It's very interesting. And after we went to the totem pole, we went to the seawall to saw the nice skyline of the city. I was trying to get a nice like picture of Vancouver. It was kind of midday, so it was about like 3-4 o'clock, and sunset was about like 8 p.m. at that point. So pretty good lighting. I'd say decent lighting. I wish I had better actually for it, but got some great shots of the city. I think like I can't remember this when it closes. Most parks in Washington close at dusk, so you probably get some great sunset pictures of the city for sure. And you probably get some great sunrise pictures as well over the water and the bay. And then we saw this nice little lighthouse. Is really nice and cute. I took a picture of it, and it's a really fun attraction. The park really offers a lot of space to walk through, but it's very friendly, people friendly. Like there's paths that you can walk on, walking trails. There's biking trails that only for bikers only, and the travel through it is pretty much a one-way road. So you go through one way, and so it's not one of those parks that you kind of travel different paths to see which one's the best place to check out. This one kind of circles around the park all around it, so you can go through the whole park and see what you like and see the attractions, and you can also cut in the middle of the park in case you're done with your trip as well. They have these, I like to call them the carriage buses, like these big long carriages that the horse have. You go by horse. And I'm not for sure if it's free or not, but if you love that, to kind of get a nice little tour around the park with a nice little large buggy and a tour guide to tell you about the park, it's a great time to do that. I would not recommend getting behind that because horse carriages by two horses by a pretty large like train. I wish I had a picture of it. And it would be pretty slow. Luckily, we didn't have that happen. But did the park, got checked into our hotel, and we ate at a ramen shop. So the street where Danbo Ramen's at is on a street called Robson Street, which is a very popular touristy street that has a lot of shops. A lot of stores, a lot of shops, shopping. You love shopping, especially a lot of good brands, high-end brands as well. But also, my favorite part of it, it has the large amount of Asian restaurants. There is fantastic. A variety of stuff, Korean, Thai, Chinese, everything. There's a large Asian population in Vancouver, and it definitely reflects on the food itself. So we went to Danbo Ramen, which was recommended by someone who we know here locally. We get there, and there's a bit of a wait in line for it, but we got in there pretty quickly. They're really efficient. The space inside is bigger than you expect from the size, because it looks like the whole street is kind of like nice tiny restaurant, nice tiny restaurant. But they do a great job to to really make the space work, really fit in a lot of people. So we got in. We probably waited for about maybe 5-10 minutes and it was about like maybe 10 people in front of us, and 5 or 6 groups. And you got there in 10 minutes. They give you a menu. You can really customize what you want. There's different thickness of noodles you want, what kind of broth you want, how rich and thick your broth wants to be. It's very good. It's very simple, but very like you can able to customize it however you want. I did the classic ramen. So I did the basic standard broth, standard noodles. I love ramen, but I'm not very versed to know what I like per chance. Very simple guy, simple taste. My girlfriend, she did I think standard noodles but thick broth, but she did something a little more spicy. And then you can add an egg, some seaweed, and some other things with it too, which I added the seaweed and eggs. You can see in the picture on our YouTube page, or our YouTube side of things. But it is definitely the best ramen I've had since moving to Washington or the Pacific Northwest. No offense to other ramen shops out there, but it was fantastically good. We ate there. Yeah, it was really good. I recommend it. I recommend trying other things too. We passed a Japanese cheesecake place, and you have your basic Japanese cheesecakes, and it's really unique how they make theirs. But the coolest thing for me was like, hey, I don't want a whole cheesecake, but they offer cheesecakes from like a cupcake size of it, little cupcakes, and they have I think a tea version and your basic version. My only regret is not going back to get it, but I was full from the good foods that we had in Vancouver. But the ramen shop is nice. I'm trying to see if I had anything else. But yeah, I think one of the nice things about the ramen shop is, like, especially a Japanese culture, is slurping is encouraged. Slurping's is like a thing. Like, hey, you cooked yourself a pretty fine meal. So, and we'll probably get more into that. I think slurping is one of those segments in the future we're going to have. But that's kind of our first day of Vancouver, part 1 of the series. Part 2, we'll kind of go to talk about a suspension bridge, and a nice test kitchen that we ate that night. Stay tuned next week for it. Stay tuned later on if you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple. You can check the YouTube version of this episode on YouTube. And then, yeah. And it'll have some videos, some pictures of it, and we'll have a nice highlight video on the YouTube side of things. Spotify, you can watch us on Facebook. On Instagram, you can look at Blue Ties pictures. Instagram, if you're on YouTube, you can see this on the bottom of it. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoy it. I'm excited to talk more about Vancouver. So far, I mean, again, the trip was fantastic. If you've ever been to these places, the Aquarium, or if you've ever been to Aquarium, what's your favorite things to check out? What's your must-go things to see? If you've been to Vancouver, to Stanley Park, let me know what your favorite places are. What places would you recommend me to check out? And other restaurants or food places. So thanks, travelers, for listening to me for this week. And I can't wait to hear back from you. All right, so everyone have a good week. And I'll catch you later. Bye, travelers.